Welcome to the Monadnock International Film Festival.
Thank you! Get into the groove of things.
And coffee.
This is our second, yeah, I have my coffee. Welcome to the Monadnock International Film Festival, the second annual film festival in Keene, New Hampshire. And this weekend, all weekend long, we're looking at films and filmmakers and speaking with some celebrities and people that are involved in the industry, and as well as watching lots of great movies. And so right in front of me right now is Haik Kockarian, and you director and producer of a movie called Please Be Normal.
That is correct.
Which is, tell us a little bit about this movie. It's an interesting movie.
The film itself is revolved around a subject of having a first child for a man who is a playwright, but unfortunately an unsuccessful one. And this rather important event in his life of becoming a father has a drastic effect on his being, has an effect on his outlook of life, has an effect on his career that he was hoping to develop as a playwright, has an effect in the physical place where he lives, which is New York City. And he is trying to cope with this. And the way he does it is by trying to first understand the conflict within himself. Because what happens is that there's nothing wrong in a film, really. There's particularly nothing wrong in his character, whose name is Victor, the main character. He has a girlfriend, perhaps to be wife soon, who loves him, who is very focused on putting a family together, creating a nest for the family. He has a father-in-law who is his girlfriend's father, played by Sam Waterston, for that matter of fact, who is very interested in helping this newly formed couple, who is doing everything to help them, to support them financially, buys them a house, offers them to start their own business. And we meet these characters in a moment when they are moving out to their new house, to their new home, to their new life. So seemingly, everything working great. But all of this creates a tremendous amount of pressure on Victor, and also creates an existential question. Is this what I want? Is this new reality, is this new life, is what really ultimately going to make me happy? Now, if you look at it in a context of a man who's about to have his first child, which is a life-altering experience, everybody would agree that. And couple that with that kind of a major question, whether is this something that's going to make me happy, you come up with an unbearably difficult conflict to live with. And a conflict in itself, in the movie and in a larger philosophical scale, does not have an answer. And that's why the character is struggling.
It's almost him having to say goodbye. I mean, it is him saying goodbye to his dreams, but it's also part of it is him growing up and becoming responsible in a way. I mean, in a way, he's having to take on a new responsibility. And the father figure, which you said was played by Sam Waterston, is sort of stepping in and almost trying to do that for him, which is another sort of blow to the ego a little bit.
What's important, and this ties to the title of the film, when you say becoming a responsible person, there is a conventional wisdom as to what that means. But what if we question that conventional wisdom? What does that mean to be a responsible person? What is considered to be normal? Because we can arguably say, and I'm sure you have met in your life people like that too, who do have all of that, and they are responsible people, and they are wonderful people, but there is a void within them. And that void is a very deeply philosophical and intellectual question that we are questioning in this film by putting a square question: what is normal? What is normal? And everyone asks this character to please be normal, but he's trying to understand what that means for him.
So he's feeling a lot of pressure and pushing from
tremendous amount of pressure,
outside forces. Even you can see in the beginning of the movie when she wants to pick out, the female character wants to pick out the crib, and he's just not into the idea of facing the idea of picking out what crib's going to be good. He just can't quite seem to get into the groove of this new responsibility.
Yeah.
So what does he end up doing?
There's a twist in the film. There's a parallel story that we are following of a woman, regardless who she is, who has an ailing mother, sick mother, that she is taking care of. And there's a tragic accident, and the mother is being taken to the hospital. And he is, by simple accident, gets involved in this unexpected drama that is introduced from the half of the film. Throughout the film, his simple quest, and this is what, in my opinion, is interesting, because what you mentioned, for instance, the cradle, right? Throughout the film, it's very benign what they talk about. They talk about the cradle, and they talk about the house, and signature, and this and that. All these things are representations to a larger question to me. They have a philosophical concepts. So the cradle is something bigger than just the cradle, and the house is something bigger than just the house. And throughout this entire film, his simple quest is to, can we just get away for a weekend to the forest? Right? It's a simple quest, seemingly. Of course, that means to go back to simplicity, to go back to the nature, to go back to the calmness, to go back to something that's larger than us in a larger context. But somehow that simple request is denied. And this tragic event that occurs pushes Victor to materialize that simple request, which does have consequences, because as you know, and as I know, a spiritual relief and everything else in life comes with its opposing force that needs to put you in your confinement and in your normality.
And maybe not perceived differently by the father.
Correct.
Who's not understanding.
Correct. Who's a symbol of normality, who's a symbol of growing up, who's a symbol of convention.
Right. Interesting. And you're a photographer as well. Your work has been in galleries around the world. But did you start off as a photographer first and then a filmmaker second, or did it?
I was at the panel earlier this morning, and that question was asked to me. They all started together. I grew up in a very artistic family of theater actors and directors, and also painters. My father was a painter. So I was introduced to many art forms from very early age in my life. And then I moved to New York City at the age of 18 by myself, and was kind of thrust in a heart of it with all of its creative juice that comes with it. So I started playing music that I have been playing in Armenia, but I started playing in bands and doing photography, and we were starting making films. So then it kind of morphed into 3 branches that are now, luckily and very pleasantly, starting to take shape, and I can talk about it.
Yeah, and as a songwriter, you have 3 albums out. One's called Heaven, the other called Juice, and one called Children's Album.
Correct.
And obviously the creative juices flow in your family. But do you have trouble defining? You're asking that question through your character, as to sort of, who am I and what's normal? Do you ask that question yourself sometimes, as to what should I be choosing one of these? What is normal, or do you just accept it and go with the flow?
It's a very good question, because in all of our lives there are crossroads. There are watershed moments when we have to make a decision as to which way our direction is taking. And there certainly was a point in my life when I had to make decisions. I mean, who am I? What am I? What do I want to do? What do I want to focus on? Right? What's the direction should I take? And a conventional wisdom was choose something. Focus on something, go deep into something. But the spiritual side of me that always asks the most basic question is, what makes you happy? Like, what is it makes you happy as a human being? It's seemingly a simple question, but it is such a difficult question to come up and to stick to. And the answer was simple. I love creating films. I like writing films. I'm an auteur filmmaker. I write my own work. This is my second film. This is my first film as a writer, director, producer. But this is my second feature, which I wrote and co-produced. It's a French-US production. And photography is sort of the big part of it, and by default, because film and photography are sort of
Sure.
cousins. And the music allows me to express myself in a way that these 2 other art forms are not. And I decided to stay true to myself, and the answer was, I love this, playing music, for instance. It makes me happy. And doing all this creative work makes me happy, and there was certainly a price to pay for it, and I was willing to pay, and that's how it all materialized.
With your lead actor in this movie, there was a lot
Luis
of...
Consalvi, phenomenal actor, without any question.
He was good, and he had a lot of scenes in which the expression of the moment was all in his face and not necessarily in dialogue.
There's a limit to how much that as a director you can direct an actor. Like you can express your thoughts, your interpretation, the shot, but ultimately there has to be kind of an unspoken tune-up. You know, both actor and director have to be tuned in into that magical space when they instinctively feel that what they have, it's like playing music. It's like you play with your bandmates. You don't have to look at them or see them. You go somewhere else and you connect, and that's the product that the audience hears it. Now, of course, you know, we agreed on the approach. And the approach was that he's going to not worry about me and not worry about blocking or anything like that. And I allow him to be in his environment and build what we already felt was the character, was the essence of the character. And once he got that down, then the rest was just a question of getting it right and getting the shots right. And it's already a bit of a technical thing.
Do you actually rehearse the movie without cameras and stuff, go through certain scenes of it? Obviously, you probably don't do the whole thing, but do you take certain crucial points in the movie and go out and rehearse those?
You know, you might physically read the script. You might do some movements. In our case, because the character is mute to a large degree, and because there's so much internal struggle happening that you have to express without saying word, which was a huge challenge, and again, Lewis handled it magnificently. What we did is first we needed to interpret the situation as opposed to the text or the shot or the blocking. We sat down and say, what happens to this guy? What happens to this guy? And deeper you dig, deeper you go, deeper you go. For this type of character, you have to go really all the way down to the dirt. Yeah. And then once you get into that dirt, that's where, this is what happens. From that point, I was blessed to have a cast, obviously, that I had. You let them do their work, and you know, you can just kind of pull back and let it happen.
So let's talk about the cast. The cast, you have Louis Cancelmi, Elizabeth Waterston, and her father, Sam Waterston, which everybody knows from Law and Order and hundreds of movies that he's made in the past.
And Danny Eskelson, also a great addition to the cast.
Right, I'm sorry. And what was it like working, because they're a married couple, the two lead characters are a married couple in real life, but what was that like working on set with that? And also you have the real father of the lead actress as well, so you're working pretty much with an entire family.
Yeah, that was obviously a very unique situation. It was obviously a very exciting situation to have that kind of a setup. The script was written for this family to begin with. You know, I had Elizabeth in mind. I had Louis Cancelmi, her real life husband, in mind. I certainly hoped and kept my fingers crossed to have an actor of such caliber as Sam Waterston in it, for which I was honored, obviously, to have him in. So the family relations were already there. I should also mention that Elizabeth Waterston was pregnant, and she was playing a pregnant woman in the film. She was, I don't know, 6 months pregnant or something like that.
That's amazing.
Visibly pregnant. So that, you know, by default, it created already an environment that I could use. Now, it's a dangerous situation because it can, you know, if you're not using it right, it can backfire. And you might just count too much on the real family relations. You know, they are happily married and they were delighted it was their first child. They were on 9th cloud from happiness. So the reality of it was far from what film was. But we just refined the connections, and we allowed that real connection, that real sense of becoming a father, becoming a parent for the first time, knowing each other. And I also asked them to mentally, without telling me, go back into their relationship and connect with certain emotional conditions that were relevant or parallel to what they were trying to do on the screen. And once it clicked, once it worked, it was a true magic, because there are scenes in it, for instance, when the character of Elizabeth, Mary, expresses her concern that something is going to go wrong, and you see Victor putting his hand on her belly. And there's a moment when the child kicks, and they both sort of click with it. You know, that was a pure magic. I don't know if that many films have had this kind of a setup. So we feel that.
Was that a real moment?
It was a real moment.
It was a real kick.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, see, that's gold.
But again, you know, it's a dangerous balance because you want the film to be a fiction, which is it is. It's a purely fictional film. So you don't want that to become documentary. You want it to be fiction. But I'm glad that we achieved that effect.
So tell me a little bit about the crew that put this film together and how it came together.
Yeah, it's a great question because unlike other films, when you know, people speak about the crew as sort of the creative body that made the film, in this case, the crew was a risk taker as much as anybody else. I mean, you have to understand that this film is a miracle. I mean, every director would sit in his chair and would say that. But this particular film, it really is a miracle because we decided to do this film. I mean, we worked for many years trying to, you know, the script and trying to get the attention and so forth. We went through the whole process. But the actual decision to make the film was purely creative impulse on everybody's part. And this includes Annette Lewis, our executive producer, Haik Kockarian. I mean, they took the risk. They took the risk. You know, these endeavors are not cheap. So we, you know, I met the actors and I met the crew, and
So you just came to a conclusion at some point. Let's just do it.
Let's just do it. And the reason was large reason was Elizabeth's pregnancy. I felt like it was a sign, and I also felt, you know, projects are, you know, they have their organic development, and there's time when they are ripe, and when they are ripe, you take the risk and you do it. And we did it, and it was a real risk, but I was very, very pleased to have everyone who jumped in and did this. I consider all of the crew members as much of an artist as anybody else, so it was great.
Good. And what's next for you? Are you writing more scripts, getting ready for your next one?
Yeah, I guess, you know, I haven't really spoken about this in public yet, but yeah, I am writing a new film. It's in a first draft, and it's about people and animals, let's put it this way.
People and animals. I'm intrigued. All right, well, hopefully we'll see you sitting here maybe in another year or two.
Yeah, I'm a big believer of animal rights. We coming as people, as species, we're coming to understanding that we share this planet with creatures that are equal to us intellectually and emotionally. We're not there yet. So this is something I want to tackle.
This has been a great year, though, for that in regards to, you know, the movie Blackfish, which has made a big difference. Now they're actually talking about passing a law that would actually ban the use of killer whales at SeaWorld, and that's fantastic.
That is correct. Yeah, it's something that we need to come to. You know, we need to understand.
Good. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview, and good luck with your film, and enjoy the rest of the festival.
Great. Thank you so much.
Great. This is good.